Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass, First Impressions coverage. Moving on to the Unholy Death Knight. And surprisingly, or just because of how I do the analytical madness that I do, which if you want to catch any of that live, of course, it's over on twitch.tv/FinalBossTV, but it's all categorized and organized and put together on the channel guide. So check down below in the description box for the link to that, or over on the Twitch channel I just talked about. It's !guide in chat, G-U-I-D-E. But before we get into this madness, there was plenty of stuff we figured out for Blood Death Knight. There's a lot of like little things that all sort of compound, and that's also sort of how Unholy is, where if you like Unholy right now in BFA, you will also like Unholy in Shadowlands. Granted, we're not doing any covenant testing. We're not doing any of we can't do any of the soulbind madness. So we don't know how other things are going to hook together. But it is functionally the same with some pain points, but more into that in a moment here. Pikachu is balancing it on his stomach, but today's video, of course, is brought to you by my partner and sponsor over at Corsair and Elgato. And if you are looking for any bits and bobs or pieces and parts for your upcoming build, your current build, you're looking for a better mouse for all those buttons coming back in Shadowlands, then the new Scimitar Elite with the side panel key slider control system. I'm reading the box now right now. I'm just totally cheating. That links down below. You can support what I do here, the show, the stream, and everything in between. What I do on the internet. By also grabbing yourself some awesome gear. I've been a huge fan of Corsair even before I signed with them over a year ago, and have re-signed with them in 2020. And if you would like to support what I do here and get yourself some awesome gear, link down below in the description box, 10% off and free standard shipping, no matter where you are. Unholy Death Knight. Baseline stuff. You have Ghoul. All DKs get Sacrificial Pact. 2-minute cooldown where you blow your Ghoul up. You heal for 25% of your maximum health. This has an 8 target cap. For Blood, this basically just adds another DPS cooldown, and kind of for Frost, it'll do a little bit of damage, right? But for Unholy, you have a 30-second cooldown on summoning your Ghoul. So you can actually use it a little bit more easily, because when you blow him up, you can just resummon him back again, no big deal. And even in your opener, you'll be able to resummon your Ghoul after blowing him up as well. So a little bit there. And we're on the same page here. We're going to go to Rune Forges real quick. We're kind of rapid firing a few things here, but not everyone's going to watch every single one of these videos. So if you are a DPS DK main, keep your eyes out for Rune of Hysteria. I have that on a different weapon. We're going to use that as well today. So we're going to look at that. It adds 20 maximum runic power, and your attacks have a chance to increase your RP generation by 20% for 8 seconds. It's like 3 times haste RPPM somewhere in there. So that is going to be what you're looking for. It actually makes you shotgun death coils. You can store up to 3 now because you have 100 RP base, right? That gives you 20 more, and death coil is 40. So you can do the 4, 8, 12 and just blast 3 death coils back to back. Sanguination, this is a tanking rune. More on that in the Blood video. Same thing with Spell Warding. Root of Apocalypse is essentially just the artifact trait, just yanked right out of it from Legion. I'm wearing it right now. Where only your ghouls attacks, not your Apocalypse ghouls or your Army of the Damned ghouls, which is probably a bug and hopefully a bug, applies death, war, famine, or pestilence. It's all the exact same effects. I pull over my notes here. It is death is a 1% healing done reduction by the target per stack. Pestilence is a shadow dot over 6 seconds plus a 15% slow per stack. Famine is 2% less damage done to the Death Knight per stack. And War increases the damage done from the Death Knight to the debuff target by 1% per stack. 5 stacks is maximum. However, it only works right now on Claw on your base Ghoul, which makes this Runeforge pretty awful. It one stack of something goes up, and then one stack of another random thing goes up, and the previous one falls off, and you're just like, what's the point? Fallen Crusader is still strong. which comes up a lot in the discussion about should we just use Fallen Crusader again, forehead, but we'll see about that. Unending Thirst, new kind of like PvP slash maybe open world rune forge. 10% haste and movement speed when you kill an enemy that gives you experience or honor, as well as 5% maximum health healed when you do the same thing, and you get 10% movement speed while dead. So kind of an open worldy one. It's strange. It only procs on the killing blow, not the killing blow window. Additionally, other things you're going to see in the spellbook: Change of Ice is back. Big good one on there. To clarify as well, this is I'm jumping ahead, but this is how this videos work, right? There is a bit of a misconception about what the Apocalypse and Army of the Damned synergy was going to be in the blue post. It sounded like it was going to be baseline. It is not. It is part of Army of the Damned, where Death Coil and Epidemic reduce the cooldown of Apocalypse by 1 second and Army of the Dead by 5. And then additionally, your Apocalypse and Army of the Dead will summon a Magus of the Dead for 15 seconds that hurls Frostbolts and Shadowbolts at your foes, who also is kind of buggy or wonky from live, where he's supposed to do 1 Frostbolt, then 2 Shadow, and then 1 Frostbolt, then 2 Shadow. He just kind of casts whatever he wants now. He'll do like Frostbolt, Frostbolt, Shadowbolt, Frostbolt, 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 Shadowbolt, Shadowbolt, Frostbolt. I don't know if they made it random on purpose, but it's not baseline as we were thinking it was going to be. It is still part of the sort of Army of the Damned passive. What is passive, however, is the sort of Visions of Perfection passive. There's a rank 2 Apocalypse you will get that will take 15 seconds off of your cooldown. So you now have a 75-second cooldown Apocalypse, so it will always sync with Unholy Frenzy, which is nice for the Unholy Frenzy pure single target sort of tunnel build, right? Stacking more cooldowns because you've got Army of the Dead and Gargoyle is back baseline, and I've always got DT, and you have even like the potential of Unholy Blight coming back. So not really the Fester Blight Might stuff of the old days, but there's something there. And of course, Apocalypse. The setup time, which brings me to this sidebar here. In the description box down below, on top of all of the other stuff I've talked about beforehand, if you want more information and more feedback and thoughts about the current state of the Unholy Death Knight in the alpha, there are links to 2 different forum threads about specific things we're going to be talking about in this video today. If you want to read more of those things and sort of get where a lot of the more verbose feedback is coming from, we talked about it today for hours. Some of these parts were lots of discussion, and obviously there's numbers involved in some regard, but numbers don't mean anything right now, at least not directly. So check those out if you want more Unholy Death Knight discussion. And we have Lichborn and Death Coil healing have returned. So we'll go back over here. Lichborn is now base for all DKs, and we've tried out a bunch of interactions here with Lichborn. It makes you immune to Charm, Fear, and Sleep, so you cannot be turned evil because you're immune to fear. It gives you 10% leech while active for 10 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. And because you are undead, you can Death Coil yourself. So there is this old school Death Coil macro that you can use to Death Coil yourself with the same button cast of going into Lichborn in the first place, which it will then eat 40 runic power immediately, but because it's off the GCD, and it is even a in response to ability, Lichborn can be used. Let me read all this stuff out here. You can still reduce your Dark Transformation cooldown and proc Runic Corruption by casting Death Coils on yourself or your pet. Of course, the Dark Transformation cooldown is the base one. When you cast Death Coil, you take 1 second off of the DT transformation, which is your rotational ability to transform your ghoul into Big Boy Ghoul. So you can still do that. That all still works. Additionally, against a Paladin, you will be stunned by Wake of Ashes, but if you AMS and then Lichborn, you will be immune to the stun while the shield holds. If they break the shield and then Wake of Ashes you will be stunned. Shackle Undead from Priests does work, and it's an 8-second shackle. It's actually insane, but same thing applies there. If you AMS and then Lichborn, you're immune to the shackle applying to you unless the priest breaks your AMS, which of course you can use like Spell Eater, so it's a bigger shield and more time, because by default, of course, you only have 5 seconds on AMS. And Lichborn can be used to break mind controls, fears, or sleeps retroactively. Reactively? One of those, reactively. If you are mind controlled, if you are feared or slept, you can pop Lichborn to break those effects and be immune to them for the 10-second follow-up. Now, we did this all with like PvP testing and duels. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to see all those effects work against certain boss effects, but for the most part, you can react to it just like if you're stunned, you can IBF to break the stun, right? Because you can cast that blam. And so the same thing goes for if you are hit with the crowd control effects of Lichborn, you can pop it in response. All right, let's get over to the big ticket items real quick here. Real quick. What's the duration of this video? If you made it this far and you've enjoyed the commentary so far on all of those other previous videos, perchance, maybe hit that like button on YouTube. It's one of the biggest ways you can support what I do here on the internet, especially we're right now trying to grow the channel again during all this huge junket. If you say you like the video, YouTube goes like, I'll show more people this video, and then more people get to see all of the testing and the deep analytical analysis we do, either here on the YouTube channel or more so on the Twitch. But that's up to you. You can hit it. You gonna hit it? All right, Dreadblade. There's been talk in the past about how people don't like how much passive damage is coming into the Unholy Death Knight. Well, you're gonna get more, because Dreadblade now is both the shadow damage you deal, as it is right now, and the damage of your minions. You are now officially a Beast Mastery Hunter. I mean, kind of. The weird part about this is that it does double dip on certain effects in the game. Most importantly, Shadow Claw, which is what your DT'd ghoul does, the Shadow Claw ability, improves to deal shadow damage, which gets amplified by your mastery, and then also amplified by the fact that it's shadow damage that you deal. Not sure if this is a bug for the double dip. The Magus of the Dead also is double dipping with Dreadblade. And there was something else that was double dipping, but I cannot recall what it was right now off the top of my head. It might be Unholy Pact was also double dipping, or it might. Unholy Pact is just not working at all. It's Hell Chains, your new talent down here. I'll go over that in a little bit, but I think that was something else. Let me see here. Yeah, currently double dipping on Shadow Claws. On your ability for your ghoul. Clawing Shadows just gets the shadow damage. Dark Transformation, your pet ghoul. The Magus of the Undead. I didn't write what the other thing was. If you know what it was in the comments, leave it down there, because I can't remember. Dang it, dang it, dang it. But the other big change, I have it talented here, and it definitely is a pain point that's come up multiple times in conversation, is Epidemic and Outbreak. So you're looking at the Epidemic target right there, sorry, the Outbreak target, and you're noticing that, what happened? There's no debuff anymore. So this is, I think, a fundamental, even if I also believe that Epidemic should be baseline. If it probably would be gutted if it was baseline, but at least you wouldn't just spam death coils on single target when you're AoEing. But Bursting Sores is more of the pain point and the problem for players because of how crazy and quadratically AoE scaling the Unholy Death Knight is. But Outbreak now is basically, it is Howling Blast. My brain couldn't think of what the other spell was on Frost Decay. It's Howling Blast without the cool animation. It deals initial shadow damage to the target and infects all nearby enemies with Virulent Plague. It's a one caster. Let's go over to these kitty cats real quick. It is not a cast and you get like the Unholy Blight cloud on the target for 6 seconds, and every 1 second it refreshes itself in Pandemic, so you basically get the base duration of 21 plus the Pandemic to 28 plus 6 seconds of it continuously refreshing itself. That is all gone, as well as the flare up now moments. That is also gone. It does not have a chance, a 30% chance to explode or like rupture itself and deal additional AoE sort of Fire Nova-ish damage. That is all gone. It is a cast, Howling Blast, all targets are hit, Virulent Plague. That's it. It'll be like to be seen if you'll get a neat animation to go with this, because obviously Howling Blast looks very cool, but this is essentially the exact same thing. I would argue that the volume knob on Outbreak and Virulent Plague in current game in BFA is definitely a little bit too crazy. And the volume knob may have been at like 13. And Blizzard, of course, saw this and said, let's turn that volume knob down. So they went from 13 to 6. They overly cut it down by more than half, I would say. They probably could have just removed the flare-up portion, and that would have probably been just enough. Let's turn on these nameplates real quick here. Always show, because you can pull a bunch of mobs and you can be like, and blam, and there it is, and that's it. And then you can still do all your dots, drop your D&D, and get in there. But I'm gonna die. I'll run away. I'm a Death Knight. Let's do Chains of Ice, Chains of Ice, Chains of Ice. Pulling a bunch of mobs right now on these character template is very, very bad. They are very, very weak. But also they all eventually died because of the dots on them. But it is probably too far gone. The way this doesn't feel good, which you can adapt to this, is when mobs are getting pulled to your tank, don't immediately hit Outbreak on them. Wait until all the mobs are there. And the dungeon footage, if you want to watch the whole dungeon run, I was there with Calrel and Word Up and Siege from my chat. But then Tuesday was part of the DK Acarus community team of people that are figuring stuff out and working things out and providing feedback, and has been for a while. He's been a guest on my show before. He basically said that just don't cast Outbreak immediately, but you're very much used to casting Outbreak and having that 6-second window where more mobs get funneled in, then they get hit with your Virulent Plague just naturally because they're there. That is no longer a thing you can do. You have to basically just blip, cast it, and then go to town with the mobs you're pulling, and then do your thing. The one way this does feel bad is that you are going to have to use a whole lot of runes to continuously add damage on more mobs joining encounters. You kind of already had to do that, but even more so now, this brings up the pain point of Ebon Fever, makes the dot 21 seconds down to 10.5, because there's no additional 6-second window. Like I said before, Ebon Fever now is like is that going to go live like that? On pure like patchworky single target, it could work just fine because you just rotate in a rune every 10 seconds and hit Outbreak. Big deal, right? Because it does more damage than half the time. But on AoE now, it's going to consume so many more runes. But you should take Bursting Swords anyway, right? Which the Bursting Swords is now an 8 target cap, but that still doesn't... It's not exactly true. And Epidemic now apparently has a back-end target cap that's been changed. It's hard target cap, which isn't in the tooltip. So they've changed more little things, but at the same time, you're still going to be able to AoE your absolute face-off, especially with Virulent Plague, to give it a little bit of a cherry on top. The initial damage, the dot is up to 12.5% of your attack power from 10%. It's like a 20-ish% buff there. The flare up, like I said before, is gone. However, the on death, when mobs die with your Virulent Plague on them, still is there. It's for 24% of your attack power, up from 20% of your attack power. So it's a little bit stronger of a dot because of the, I guess, ease of being able to apply it to literally everything really simply. You saw that unicorn right there actually explode. So that's still there. Other bits here is that Scourge Strike, damage done increased by 20% on rank 2. Big deal. Dark Transformation. This is going to be a rank 2 that stops the need for the weird Stop Claw macro madness that Dark Transformation Unholy DKs are utilizing if you want to pool your energy. However, it is bugged because it's a travel time. When you cast your, if I put my ghoul way down here, for example, when you cast Dark Transformation, right, there is a travel time on the sort of ghostly blip that you shoot your hammer crawler. Oh my god. With the buff. However, when you cast, I was told this by a DK that actually leveled up to 58. When you cast Dark Transformation, it gives your ghoul full energy, and then your Dark Transformation ghoul transforms and may have used Claw beforehand, so it doesn't really fix anything at all. So hopefully they change it to when the spell impacts and grows the ghoul, or just the RP is neat, but like why? Just make it instant. Your ghoul just goes, he hulks out. Like, why the weird travel time nonsense? And summon Gargoyle to go back on your overall baseline changes. Gargoyle is back baseline. You can go to Acarus, which we'll do right now. You can still go to Acarus and load screen, old school load screen, gross, and grab your, was it the Valkyr? That is still available here. Some DKs didn't know of it. Wait, I was in the right place in the first place. Not downstairs. It's downstairs in the Legion version. It's upstairs in the old Wrath version. This is still the Wrath version for some reason. I'm an allied race DK, but it's not hooked up properly. You can still go over here to your old trainer, and you can say, I want to learn the summon Valkyr instead of Gargoyle with my summon Gargoyle spell. You can go back and forth to it. It still has the same duration and stuff. It's a cosmetic, looks different. And you will relearn the Gargoyle pump window. And this, of course, is yet to be seen if it double dips potentially, because it does plague damage, which is shadow and nature. However, again, like Dreadblade, makes your minions do more damage and your shadow damage spells do more damage. Maybe it's supposed to double dip, but we'll see. But you'll be able to pump your runic power into your ghoul during its window to increase its damage. It's basically 20% damage increase per death coil. And as we went over a little earlier with the shotgun death coil with Rune of Hysteria, which I can put my other weapon on now, right there, is that you'll be able to have 3 death coils back to back to back. And let's go downstairs. So you can easily store up. And don't look at the numbers right now. It's a level 10 train dummy. Don't freak out. Get a corruption proc there, maybe, from the free cast. Beautiful. 120. So you can gargoyle and go 20, 40, 60% more damage immediately into your gargoyle or your Valkyr if you want to do either one. So that's going to be a neat thing if you run with Rune of Hysteria. It depends on, obviously, if that's a better thing for burst or if the Fallen Crusader overall strength is better. On that note, of course, Unholy Pact, which is just your Hell Chains Azerite trait you're currently used to right now because they had to obviously move a talent. This gives you 8% strength while active. It does not work with Unholy Strength right now. If you have this active and then Unholy Strength procs, it cannibalizes the 8%. Or if you have Unholy Strength active and an Unholy Pact goes off, you don't even gain 8%. So, spaghetti, I suppose. They'll get that fixed, I'm sure, before it goes live. Harbinger of Doom is still bad. Soul Reaper is still Soul Reaper. It's fine. There's some shenanigans with it, as you may or may not be aware of, as many things with Soul Reaper are. Defile has a buff to it where it grows and deals increased damage now per tick. But as I reverse engineered this, it's only about a 7 to 8% damage amp per tick growth, which is fine, I guess. It's very, very weak overall in comparison to what I thought it would jump, like if it doubled its damage every single time. But I used Defile and the new Unholy Blight in the dungeon footage, and I had a lot of fun. I thought it felt really good. There was definitely some downtime, and no Epidemic baseline meant I'm just firing off death coils in AoE situations to proc runic corruption, but it felt okay. I liked the idea that Defile could work, and you could Defile more often because of the cooldown reduction. We don't know how it's going to work. There's a curing ability that replaces your Defile, so I'm not sure. It's a little bit nettling, however, that Defile sounds like fire. So hopefully that sound effect gets fixed, because why does it sound like fire and not weird shadowy goo? I don't know. And one of the last things we can go over is Unholy Blight now is a minion damage amp increase. So not only is it shadow damage that'll scale with your mastery, it also makes your pets do 5% more damage per stack. The tooltip is currently bugged on the target, but it stacks 4 times now. So a little weaker at first. It actually is overall more attack power at the end of the day. But I was told that actually in the back end how this works is it's 5% increased damage per stack. So it would be 20% more. Currently, it's only affecting your base ghoul. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the case or it should affect all of your ghouls, both from Apocalypse and from Army of the Dead. So I'm not entirely sure if it's supposed to affect everything, but we'll have to wait and see when they get more things hooked up. There are your Magus of the Undead, or Magus of the Dead. They only last for 15, even though your Army of the Dead ghouls last for 30. So he's going to... There he goes. But there's a couple of things that are definitely not hooked up yet. But as I've said, you basically have everything that the Unholy DK has, except for a couple of weird things like All Will Serve still being wonky, Ebon Fever, Harbinger of Doom is still, it's a trap. And you also have AMZ back, which is pretty big. The cooldown of IBF, we brought this up with survivability talents. IBF being still a 3-minute cooldown is still kind of funky bunch. But now that I went over quite literally earlier about the power of Lichborn and being able to heal yourself quite a bit, there's one, and there's a second, and then of course you can have 3 stored up. Every 2 minutes you've got this option, and you still would proc Rune of Corruption on yourself, and again, move DT down in cooldown. Not too bad, actually. And of course, AMZ is only a 2-minute cooldown for 20% DR against magic within the zone for 10 seconds. And you can kite again more reliably with Chains of Ice. Of course, you can always spec into your Death's Reach, your Asphyxiate, or your Grip of the Dead as well. So the toolkit is there. I think there are still some interesting icky points, maybe. But like this sound effect. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Unholy DK. What do you think the hierarchy of rune forges might be potentially, even though I think Hysteria looks pretty good. Apocalypse would look very good if it actually worked on all your ghouls, but that is yet to be seen. And we'll have to see what the Frost DK, which is up next, brings to us again. If you want to support what I do here on the internet, the show, the stream, and everything in between, link down below in the description box for my Corsair affiliate link, my partner link, I suppose, since I'm sponsored by them. But 10% off and free standard shipping on any peripherals and any gear from Elgato, any peripherals from Corsair. If you're looking for anything, of course, I just did a giveaway a little while ago, so the giveaway winners are being contacted. I do those from time to time. But thank you very much for listening and watching and following along and commenting down below if you have any thoughts, suggestions, feedback, and ideas. We'll see what the Unholy DK and what stuff gets cleaned up here, because some things are definitely a little bit weird. But so far, looks pretty good. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all in the next Shadowlands Alpha First Pass video.